Hello, welcome back to the
Oh,
Two Tonys podcast. We're here to talk some amateur dramatics. We're here to talk some Caleb Williams. We're here to talk some shite. And how you doing,
choice.
mate?
I'm talking choice. As you can see, I'm very fucking red because it's sunny over here in Sweden and I was out on a bicycle cycling around, so my arse is on fire. But other than that, it's I'm doing quite well. That sounds really bad, didn't it? No, it's good. I'm good. I listened to a bit of the Caleb interview or the press conference and I switched it off after around 3 questions. But we'll get into that, I'm sure. How are you doing?
No, not bad, man. Not bad at all. I was going to say, I was looking at you and I was like, you remind me of like a siren on top of an ambulance or something like that. Like,
I
there's
know.
definitely a
I'm
red
very
thing going
red.
on there for definite. Like,
Very,
I'm
very red.
flipping it.
Maybe it's my background because now I leave the shed.
Yeah,
Maybe the
no, I'm
color
good,
got
man.
weird. So I'm out of my shed. I'm on the run. Like that's what I keep saying to myself. Um, yes, let's have a chat about what it is we were after listening or watching to, or we haven't spoken in 2 weeks. So first of all, most importantly, which is what we started every show, I'm on the rosé. I'm on the vapes. Right. What are you drinking? Or are you drinking that for us tonight?
Uh, Guinness again, which is like a nightly thing for me almost.
Tell us about
It's
the tell us
medicinal.
about the Tell us about the you said last week you tempted people there a couple of weeks back. You were talking about the Guinness with the widget or whatever it was.
The nitro surge. I'll tell you what, I'll go get it. I'll go get it. Right now, the,
You
the
get it
thing
while I
is,
talk
right. So
about my redness as I walk around.
it's just the normal cans. It's not the nitro surge can, so it doesn't work just as well. But we'll do it anyway. Right, hold on. I'll need to down this one so I can get you another one. Any excuse.
Oh,
Hold on.
no reason why. There's pressure there now. Look at that. That's pure skill. This is what you get on the Two Tonys podcast. Nowhere else do you see a host not come back again so he can go and show you his new Guinness. We're not sponsored by Guinness, just so everyone knows. I wish we were, because that would be kind of cool. But no, we're not sponsored by Guinness.
Surely they can afford to throw us a few pennies. Do you know what I mean? Right.
I say
Hold on
that
a
every
second. I'm going to go and get that thing. 2 seconds.
I say that every time and they never do. Yeah, so everyone out there, Lee, as I see, Lee's one of our regulars, came over from the other program we used to be involved with. So Lee, great to see you. Anyone who's watching on Twitter, that you're going to be after finishing listening to Caleb talking or Ben talking or whatever else they were talking about, make sure you come on over to the YouTube channel and get involved, have a chat. It's great to get involved with people, and I see people starting to watch now. So make sure you jump back across. Yeah, it's interesting. As I said, I'm living in Sweden. I moved out of my shed, as everyone knows, and now I'm roasted because it's been a beautiful day, and I went cycling and I went to all these different places. So it's kind of cool. So it's going to be interesting what Tony has now. What before we get into the bear stuff, this is groundbreaking stuff. So I'm looking forward to hearing this.
Guinness Guru, eat your heart out. So
That's what I'm talking.
this is what we have here. This is the Nitro Surge device. Comes
Again,
in
we're
this
not
lovely
sponsored by
wee
Guinness.
box.
We're not. I wish
We're
we
not
were
sponsored
sponsored by
by
Guinness.
Guinness. Could you imagine it though? Like, because they'd probably send us free cans.
Oh, I love it.
Like,
I wouldn't.
that
They
would be
wouldn't need to
pretty
give us
cool.
any money. They wouldn't need. Well, if they want to give us money, they can. They wouldn't have to give us money. All they need to do is literally like send us over free cans, a couple of
But see, if
cases a
they give us
month.
the free cans, it actually saves me money anyway. So there's money in my pocket there. So it's effectively just like getting money, you know. So
Dear Diageo, cut us a break.
quanti
Now, go on,
fuck.
tell us about
By the
this
way, how
product.
pale do I look compared to
Sorry,
you? How pale do I look?
I
I
know
look
you
very
look.
pale,
You look proper Scottish now, my friend. I look. I don't know what I look like.
pale
As
blue.
Lee rightly says, I look like a vampire in the sun, which is a bit harsh, but I get it. But yeah,
They
like
call it in
it's
Scotland. They call it Peely Wally. That's what you look like in Scotland. You're
I'm going to
Peely
turn on my
Wally.
lights just in case. Maybe it's the light. I look less red
Oh,
now
there
anyway.
you
That's
go.
one
He
thing.
looks like a different man
I'm
now.
less red. I'm
Jeez.
less red. I
There
look
we go.
more normal. There we go. I should have turned on the light from the
Right.
start. This has been riveting 5 minutes for the
Hold
people
on.
watching.
Right. Cans open. Right. Hold on. Right. So here's the device. Right. Right. It's got the
Yeah.
wee pouring nozzle, which you attach on here. Right. You then pop it on top of your can, like so. Right. And then there's a wee button here at the back. Hold on. I'm going to make sure this is on straight. Right. there's a wee button here at the back. You press that, and then it lights up on top of here, and then that's it ready to pour. So when you start pouring, it surges.
Looks like a penguin.
And you can hear it. You can hear it surging. Like, you'll not hear it because it's too quiet. But it is surging. And the plan is just, it's the closest thing to a draft pint as you're going to get. So we'll just let that settle for a wee second, and then we'll do the top up in a minute.
I'm impressed.
But aye,
I'm impressed.
it's pretty decent, man. I would recommend getting one for definite. But it works better with the actual cans, not this one.
Yeah, I get that. Anyway, let's talk bears before we go into it. I'm drinking a lovely box wine, in case anyone's asking, because I am now very European and cosmopolitan. So I've got my vape, I've got my box wine.
You are.
What more can I want in life?
I'm surprised you're not smoking cigarettes
Cigars.
with the wee stick with the
Oh
cigarette
yeah,
on
that's
the end of it.
and very very snooty. See, Scandinavians don't do that kind of stuff.
Oh.
They're much more reserved for that stuff. But yeah, I feel more Scandinavian by the day.
Let me ask you a question. Is it true in Scandinavia that they make you go to a chemist to get your cigarettes? Like,
No,
you have to
that's
queue up.
not true. But what they do is they have a thing called Systembolaget, and Systembolaget is basically the off license, and the off license closes at Saturday at 3 o'clock and doesn't reopen till Monday at 11. So you can't buy a drink outside of a bar from Saturday from 3 or 4. I can't remember which one it is, and all of Sunday. They just don't trust. They don't trust their own people to not get hammered on a Sunday. So that's what it's called. So that's the Systembolaget thing. And other than that, Scandinavians are pretty cool. It's well structured and stuff like that. So very unlike me in essence.
Aye. They've benefited from that old oil fund. The Norwegians have got like a
Norwegians
$6
Norwegians
dollar fund there from oil, man. Like, Scotland could have had that, but they decided just to do what other people tell them to do. So it wasn't going to happen. Anyway, like,
didn't want to go into that. I love that. Then you top it up. This is everyone. Guinness, he's got to sponsor us, lads. He's got to give us a couple of cans. Even send Tony a couple of cans, and we promoted you to our viewers regularly. Anyone that's listening over on Twitter, please do jump on over to YouTube, because at the moment poor Lee is on his own. Lee asked the question as well, by the way, are we trying to get Adam or Corey onto the show? We'd love to get everybody from the Irish Bear Show jumping onto us at some stage. So we must give Adam, because we're still in the old chat with them, must give Adam and Corey. Their lives are busy enough, but we'll see if we can get them on and have a chat at some stage. Talk shite as we normally do. Let's talk Bears, because that's what the people want to be listening to. What's your take, first of all, on this whole, I don't know what you call it, bravado of bullshit, I call it, of Caleb Williams and the whole story that he didn't want? Can I start on it?
Yeah, go for it.
Right. My first thing is, do you blame him?
No.
Let's be totally honest. When he first was, actually, do you blame any first number one pick? There's a reason why you're number one. The reason why you're drafting a number one. You're either shit or you've drafted up to get to that position. Bears drafted up and we're still shit. So also, name the last quarterback who has been in Chicago, who has done anything or been developed in any way. Like, we could go back to, I'm not having the Justin Fields debate, but you can have Justin Fields as an example. You can go back to Mitch Trubisky. You can go back, keep going back. And there's no one there that you could actually say that when they joined Chicago and when they left Chicago, they were a better player. Jay Cutler included. And so therefore, if you're Caleb Williams and it's a short career, the other big one for me is he's not a fan of the Chicago Bears. It's not like he grew up a Bears fan and that's all he wanted to do. So if I'm him, I don't blame him. I'd go to Ken O'Connell and I'd see Minnesota Vikings and I'd go, Jesus, I'd love to go there. Sid Luckman is correct. But it's like that's the whole story for me. And then when he gets here, if you can't say what you want about Caleb, and there's development there, obviously, but say what you want. He was dialed in and he was giving it his all and he wants to play, wants to be successful at Chicago Bears. And it's annoying that this became a story. That for me. But I think you're going to say the real story on this whole thing. I'm really interested in this one.
Yeah, I mean, first, just to very quickly touch on that, because I completely agree. It's not this is not a story. Caleb Williams and his dad are entirely justified in not wanting to come to the Bears because it's been a poorly run franchise for a long, long time. I think the phrase that was used is where quarterbacks go to die. And they're not wrong, because
Yep.
they haven't set anybody up for success in recent times. If you're a quarterback, that is, you've never had a quarterback who's thrown for 4,000 yards. Why is that? Is that because you're poorly recruiting, or because you're hammering home this? We need to run the ball and be a blue collar defense, or blue collar run, blue collar running back team, whatever the fuck. Do you know what I mean? Like, whatever the reason is, it's a bullshit reason. And if Caleb Williams was my son, and I'm probably old enough now that he probably could be. I'd have been quite young when I had him, mind you, but you never know.
No problem.
If Caleb was my son, or if it was one of my sons or my daughter joining a franchise like that, I would absolutely do the same thing. I would absolutely be going, hold on a wee second, is this actually the best place for you to go? So I've got no issues with that part of it. But what is worth talking about? Because everyone's been talking about it's a non-story. Let's stop talking about it. Let's stop talking about it from the point of view that Caleb didn't want to be here at first. But let's talk about it from the point of view is let's not sweep under the rug how poorly ran this organization has been. And Sylvie had put a tweet out, an article out the other day that was poorly received. And to be honest, I don't think many people actually read it. They've just reacted to, nothing. And he's pointing out the fact that, Ryan Poles has a lot to answer for. Now, fair enough. He's brought Ben Johnson in this summer. He's brought in X, Y, and Z. And at the moment, hopefully it works out. No one's played anything yet, but hopefully it works out. But up until that point, he made a bit of an arse of it. He was living off of that DJ Moore trade for so long. And off the back of that, you've then brought in your number one overall rookie quarterback who's meant to be the shit hot player for the future. And you've paired them with a guy who can't run a franchise in the sense that Matt Eberflus and his cronies, Shane Waldron, all that shit. Ryan Poles knew what those guys were. I don't think it would have been a surprise. And if it was a surprise and he's not been doing his job properly, to put your quarterback in that situation is very questionable. And that story needs to be talked about. And on a bigger scale of that, and I'll ask you then the question on that. People have said, well, what if Ryan Poles was just doing what George McCaskey told him to and told him to hang on to Eberflus? What does that say? What does that say about Ryan Poles and the Bears organization in general?
That's worse. I totally agree with you. That's worse. Also, everyone over at Twitter, come on over to YouTube and get involved in the conversation. Poor Lee is talking to himself at the moment. Get over there. There's a good 40, 50 of you. Come on over and just have a chat. Get involved with us. And the big thing for me, look, I am a big Ryan Poles fan. It's wavered. It has wavered. It is really wavered. I liked what he did around having, let's not forget, and this is something on Ryan Poles' face, when he came in there, he was left with shit. And he was left with a bad cap space. Whether you believe in the cap or not, irrelevant. He was left with no first round pick to start with. He was left with aging players on massive contracts. So he did year one have to totally shred it down. And he did that with Justin Fields. And then he made the call to go with Kerry Williams, and credit to him, he was right, and he moved on. The problem I had, and you could have touched on it, is then he started getting smart ass. So he takes a punter or a kicker in round 4. He takes a real Invalis Jones Jr., not a good player. Does the same thing with Clay Shaypool in a trade. He does a good trade on Montez Sweat, who needs a real kick up again this year. Good trade on that. Gets the DJ Moore one absolutely spot on, and does a little bit like Kyler Gordon. You got to give him credit for. Don't know yet about Brisker, but then you look at some of his free agency moves, and there's real question marks in there. Now this year he seems to have gone in reverse. So now he's gone and went out and got all these weapons for Caleb last year in Roma Dunze, in Keenan Allen, all these players, and all the fans were like, oh, this is epic. And then we all went, well, hold on. It doesn't matter who you have catching the football if the kid's running for his life and getting sacked 60 odd times. And for an offensive lineman not to do that, Ben Johnson comes in, and whether whether there's question marks because he's a first-time head coach, and I'm going to get to that later on myself. But whether that's the case, but the first thing that Ben Johnson came in and did, and you've got to say it's Ben Johnson rather than Ryan Pauls, because Ryan Pauls' history is not this way. He came in and said, "This is who you need to get. You need to get offensive line 1, 2, and 3. I want you to get a center. I want you to get a left guard, right guard, and I need it to be this level. And you spend this money. I don't care about anything else." That's what we did. And suddenly you're going, okay, now you're giving your quarterback a chance. Why didn't we do this 12 months ago? But the players weren't available, whatever. Doesn't matter. We didn't even try. That's my question mark on Ryan Pauls. Big year for Ryan Pauls. The other big question mark, everyone that's ever watched me on the Irish Bear Show, on this show, see me on Twitter, I never wanted Manny Aberflus. Never liked him. I was questioning him for 2 years. I've been questioning him since he walked in the door. And I'm not blowing my own trumpet, I was right. The guy was a lunatic and was just, I am blowing out trouble. Don't worry, there's loads of times Tony's right. In a vast majority of time, Tony's right. But let's just put it for this one. I'll give myself credit for this. And Absolutely. Now what they've done is they've given all the stuff over to Ben Johnson. And you're going, okay, never been a head coach before. Looks great. Sounds great. Everything seems epic. But one thing that Ben Johnson can do is he can call plays. He can come up with plays. He can come up with schemes. He is a very, 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 very good offensive mind. So that in itself benefits Caleb Williams. So even if Ben Johnson, the head coach, only wins 7 games this year and 8 games the year after, and we're looking for somebody else, Caleb Williams is going to benefit from having an offensive mind like Ben Johnson in the building and in the room. So that's a step forward. But the question then is, who made that call? Was that call made by Ryan Pauls? Was that call made by someone above him? It definitely wasn't made by a member of the McCaskey family. But it's those question marks that are there. And then you see, for me, it's a couple of red flags. Straight away in this draft, we go out and get a linebacker who we could have got in the 7th round. But again, we went smart and got him into 3rd or 4th. I can't remember whether it was 3rd or 4th. Now, Hooper Paul might be a superstar. I don't know. But there's, in the back of my head, it's like he's trying to be too smart again. And it's, you saw it, I don't know if you saw the 1920 video that got out today. And there's one thing that stood out to me is you got the opinion that Cunningham was not in agreement with that pick.
Yeah.
There was a moment where Cunningham was like, well, you got your boy. And it's like, oh, that's interesting how that's worded and how that's said. And there's just a lot of little question marks for me.
Yeah, and in one hand, like for that aspect of things, I like the fact that Pauls has went, you know what, fuck it, I'm taking the guy that I like, which displays like a self-determination. This is my team, I'm going to run it like I like, right? But then on the other hand, you go, well, why didn't you get rid of Eberflus last year? Why did we keep him for another season? And if it wasn't your decision, if it was, the ownership that were saying, no, you need to keep him, then for me, I'm kind of like, well, what does that say about the guy himself, though? Like, the fact that he's willing just to abandon what he wants to do for the sake of keeping his job. Do you know what I mean? Like, end of the day, he could get in a situation where he takes Caleb Williams on, he keeps Eberflus, Ben Johnson doesn't become available this offseason, and then he's sitting in a situation where he's not progressed any further. He maybe had an opportunity last year to take Ben Johnson instead. I just think it's a wee bit of a cop-out if you say, well, the ownership said I couldn't do it. If it were me and I was a GM, and if I was a GM worth my salt and I was trying to prove that what I was doing was going to make this team better, I would be standing there banging the table and saying, absolutely not. The move that needs to happen is this. We need to do it now because of this reason. And if you don't, then you can fuck off. And then they basically, off the back there, they probably signed non-disclosure agreements, so they probably can't say anything. But off the back, I'd say, well, if I leave or you sack me, I'll just say it was because I wanted to do this and you wanted to do that, or something along the lines of that. And at least you leave with your dignity intact. And Ryan Pauls will get another job anyway. But the point for me, I just don't like that excuse that the ownership told me. Do you know what I mean? There's a reason why these guys are owners and they're not coaches and they're not general managers. It's because they're rich, or it's been handed down for daddy or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That or mummy in this instance. That's the thing here. Do you know what I mean? Like, they shouldn't be involved in these conversations.
But say what you want about the McCaskies, and there's a lot you can say, but they don't usually get involved in football decisions, other than the stupid ones where they're talking about you can't curse and you can't do this and I hate the Packers or whatever. But say what you want about them, Cassie, they don't usually get involved in stuff like that. And for me, it's a weird call. It's a weird hill to die on. And again, it's going to be really interesting because there must be pressure on Ryan Pauls because he's spent all this money on top now. And let's give credit where credit's due. He finally got it right. He got what looks like a superb head coach. And what I explained a minute ago about the offensive mind is enough for me. Eric Bieniemy at running back coach, that's a real good call. The defensive coach, Allen, great. That's a great looking call on paper. And the picks in the draft looked smart. They went with best player available rather than I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this. And they got 3 second-round picks out of it. They've done really well in that sense. And and their off-season, if you compare the rest of the NFC North, off-season, Bears have got miles better compared to everyone else got a little bit better. Now, they needed to because they were so far behind, but they have done it. And then they straight away got Kyler Gordon's contract sorted. They got Joe Tooney's contract sorted. They've done those things that you go, okay, that's smart football. That's smart administration. Now, it's about how do they go and improve on that. Going back to the Caleb story, which we were speaking about, it underlines the whole reasoning behind what they were thinking. There was a really interesting question in the bit I watched before I lost the will to live, and where they asked about what did Caleb think halfway through the season when all this thing was falling apart. And I think that's a really interesting question, an interesting development piece. One thing that seems to get overshadowed is Caleb kept on getting the Bears into winning positions. He kept on doing it. We should have won against Washington. We should have won against Detroit. We should have won against the Vikings. And he dragged them back there. And to be fair, Roma Dunze was taking some catches that got them into that position. But for whatever reason, whether it was the Green Bay kick in Chicago was blocked or missed or whatever, then the Hail Mary against Washington because some of our players weren't even watching the play, then you've got all these other stuff going on. It wasn't because Caleb was bad. So you're going to love this one. You're going to love this one. I can promise you Tony will smile when I say the following. I guarantee you he will follow smile. Do you remember when Justin Fields was getting into the fourth quarter? And it was like, we need you now to go and win the game. We need you now to go and win the game. Go win the game now. And it never happened.
Yeah.
Caleb always got us into positions to win the game. And then sometimes it was because he was being told to keep the football, and other times because our defense fell apart, or other times because our head coach couldn't remember that you do this and it's timeout. Right? And none of those things seem to be involved in it. Now you've got a head coach, which everything from OTA seems to point towards. This guy does seem to want to do this. And he did coach Gary. I totally agree with you. By the way, again, last time I'm saying this, people over at Twitter, please, for the love of God, come over to YouTube and join I Am the One and Lee talking. That's really what I want. Yes, I had a little bet. I Am the One. Patrick Finley asked, don't question if Caleb's father speaks with him, which, yes, that was the moment that I switched off. When that question was asked by Mr. Finley, which I'm assuming because I'm saying this will never come on the show. When I heard that question of, do you talk to your father? Good luck. Bye. That's enough for me.
Do you talk to your father? Well,
yeah. Like, does your
Pat Finley's coming on the show next Wednesday as well. I'm joking. He's not.
Does your father talk for you? Does your father talk for you? Is the question. And
yeah. It's nonsense, man. Like, do you know, like the questions that were asked were stupid. What I love though about that press conference, right? Because it was going to be spoken about, right? Regardless of how much we say it's a non-story. What was the story was how Caleb handled that situation, and I thought he came out of the traps. He was running. He came out swinging, and he was like, "Do you know what? I'm just going to address this straight up. This is the elephant in the room. We're going to talk about it." And he was honest, and I thought he handled it like a pro. I thought he handled it like a guy who was the leader of an NFL team. And I was very proud of the way that he came out and dealt with the situation, dealt with the questions from the guys in the media, all the stupid questions from the guys in the media. And listen, I know the guys in the media have got a job to do and they've got pressure on them from people to ask questions. And that's mostly the reality of it. These guys have got they have to generate stories. So part of me says, it's fucking stupid to ask these questions. But part of me says, well, they're just going to do it anyway because it's sort of their job. This is what the media do. What I don't understand is why everyone gets so upset about it. Like, why are you letting it bother you so much? Why are we having this amateur dramatic reaction to everything? Why can't you, if you don't like what a guy is saying on Twitter or X, don't follow him. If you don't like what people are writing on websites or in newspapers, don't read them. Do you know, like, this isn't the first time that the media have come out with something mad. And I say the media, like it's like a group of, it's not everybody is the same instantly, but if you don't like these things, why do you let it bother you so much? Don't give it airtime. Don't talk about it. If you don't, and I know we're talking about it right now, but it's just because of the situation. Like, I don't understand why people were getting so worked up about it when really there wasn't anything to get worked up about. But for me, the biggest thing that people are missing, the biggest thing that people are missing there is that they're concentrating too much on this Caleb thing when really what they should be doing is questioning their franchise and the way that it's run. And you can say that this time around they've made the changes and they're doing this and that and the next thing. That's fine, right? But there's been so long where it's not been done. And that is a genuine conversation that has to be happened. Anybody who wants to go, let's not talk about it and move on, is kidding themselves, because the likelihood is it's going to happen again. So that's why people are talking about that. But all the other stuff, like, if you don't want to listen to it, just don't listen to it.
But that's the point. That's the point for me, is that this season is so important for so many people in that building, because now is the decision where it's like, and that, oh, by the way, and I will throw this in, that includes Caleb. Like, that includes Caleb. This is a really important season for Caleb Williams, because say what you want, Ben Johnson did not draft him. Now, everything says that Ben Johnson thinks he's great. He's the number one pick. There's no reason why I'm not putting out anything and saying that he didn't draft him. But at the end of the day, first-time head coach wants to make sure that he is the man. And unlike when he was drafted, he doesn't know that. So that's all this what he's learning. What you're seeing about mistakes in camp is because Ben Johnson is wanting him to play a certain way of football that he didn't get at Chicago last year. Someone mentioned, I think I know one mentioned that Case Keenum is really important. Totally agree with you. Having Case Keenum in there is like another coach for him in the quarterback. Brilliant. So and by the way, I say this with joy. You want Caleb Williams to be under pressure. You want Caleb Williams, because then we'll see if he is the man. And that's the next step for that kid. And having someone like Ben Johnson is going to give you that. Now, one other one that I'm going to try out to you, because I'm going to move on from the Caleb interview and the Caleb Brian Pauls thing, because I'm going to touch on it in a minute. I'm a bit worried about something. Luther Burden, right? And the reason I'm a little bit worried about Luther Burden, the third or whatever number he is, and maybe I'm being massively over dramatic myself on this one, he didn't look exactly ecstatic on draft night to become a Chicago Bear. He hasn't really looked to be ecstatic in any of the interviews I've heard about becoming a Chicago Bear. And stuff like that bothers me, right? And I'm not looking for him to do a big dance and jump up around and scream and all this kind of stuff. And I'm wondering if he thinks that he come to Chicago because he mentioned it in the 1920 thing, and that's what stuck in my head, that there's loads of weapons. DJ Moore, Roma Dunze was a first round pick last year. They've just given loads of money to DJ. They've got all these other, like the way Cole Komet is there. Like, they've got Colin Loveland. They've got running backs. They've got all these different weapons. And whether he's sitting there going, really, as a second round pick that thinks he's a first round pick, I'd like to have gone to a team where I'd have been wide receiver 2 from minute 1. It just is something that I'm going to keep an eye on rather than anything else. What's your take on stuff? Am I being completely off the wall and unfair, or is it something that you've noticed yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I did. It's difficult because I think some of these guys are just like, they're trying to play it cool or whatever. I think there's a part of that. Apparently, he cried. I don't remember. I think also though with Luther Burden though is he was genuinely pissed off that he never got taken earlier. Because he obviously thinks he's a better player or a better receiver rather than some of the guys that were taken before him. And that's a great position to have, because you want to have players that play in that particular sort of position with that sort of swagger, that sort of confidence, that sort of attitude. So I'm a fan of that. But I know what you mean. Like it sort of almost had that sort of like when it wasn't as bad as when Justin Fields was drafted to the Bears and he looked like someone had ran over his cat. Do you know what I mean? Like
It was
uh,
similar though.
it was very similar. It was. You're spot on, man. And that was definitely something that I was, you know, I think you need to sometimes just let yourself be in the moment, and But then again, these guys come from different backgrounds, and I don't know much about his background or where he comes from. And remember, there's pressure on him to be a certain way or whatever. But end of the day, I think if you're coming into a situation and you're upset because there's too many players there, then that's a bad sign because you're thinking, well, I can't beat these guys out. And if you're thinking you can't beat guys out or you can't whatever, then that's an issue. If you want to just come in and say, well, these guys didn't have any wide receivers, I'm going to be the number one or the number two, so I'm going to get loads of snaps, then that's fine. But it doesn't really say much about your character if you don't want to compete, I think. And I'm not saying that's what he's saying, but I know what you're saying there. It might be something that people read into. And, I know those us Bears fans are very guilty of reading into
Know about that.
things.
I think we
So,
just need to keep. It's just something I'm going to keep an eye on. That's all. I think there's a lot of things, and then like I know he's injured already, and I know Ozzy's injured and Lundland injured, but it's I'm not worried about that. I just think it's interesting. I also think it's interesting on how DJ Moore was kind of not called out, but there was definitely a conversation around body language and Kayla's body language, and also what I've loved from everything I've heard so far about OTAs is Ben Johnson seems to be a lunatic. And I like lunatics. I like the fact that he's going mental on the sideline. I like the fact he pulled Colcomet out in the first OTA because he wasn't in the right snap, even though it was day one of installation. And it's like you're a 3-year vet or whatever, 4-year vet. You need to know these things. I'll accept it from a rookie. I'm not accepting it from you. So you sit in the sideline for 2 plays. Thank you. And suddenly Colcomet has a great day today, supposedly. And that's the stuff I like to see. That's the lunatic I like to be involved in. I'm intrigued by Turner. That's the one thing from the 1920 that stood out. I think he could be the pick of the draft that we've taken. I think there's something about that lad that is. He seems to be like a sponge. He's also a little bit mental, and I like little bit mental people on my defensive line. If I'm honest.
the interesting one you mentioned there about Ben Johnson, and obviously the body language thing was something that came up this week. Apparently, the Bears are trying to get Caleb Williams to work on his body language and all this kind of stuff. And I like it. I'll be honest with you. I do like it. And it was something that he said in his press conference earlier on today, it was regarding someone had mentioned it about rehuddles. So they've come into the huddle, they've called the play, they've broke the huddle, and then Ben Johnson's went, no, stop. We're going to do that again. Do you know what I mean? We're going to do the huddle. We're going to re-huddle. And what he said is there's a certain way the breaks sound, and there's a certain way that the body language should look when you're coming out of it. And what he said is we're not going to accept it not sounding and looking like it should do. And I thought that was great. Do you know what I mean? Like I love that because there's certain situations where you sort of see people coming out of huddles. And you notice that a lot during the sort of Mitch Trubisky era, and then latterly with Justin Fields as well. Is like they would sort of come out, and then the bit where they all sort of clap their hands, they were all clapping hands at different times, or some people weren't really clapping hands. And I know it's a small thing, but it's not at the same time because you want to have that cohesion. You want to look like we're ready to go here, sort of thing. So I love the fact that he's picking up the very small things like that, which again sound like small things, but are actually really kind of important. And it
But he
projects a
also
certain.
called him. He also called himself out. That's what I liked as well. He also said that like I need to work on my body language on the sideline. I need to work on how I'm inputting the information into the guys. I need to work. I'm like, Jesus, remember all the Matty Eberflus? He never said anything negative about himself ever. And then before that, the other lunatic Matt, we should never ever hire Matts again. By the way, that's a big no for me. Like no more Matts. But like you'd Nagy who just thought he could eat himself if he would. He would do it if he could. And I think there's a lot of stuff to be encouraged by it. Again, He has never been a head coach in the NFL before. This is his first NFL head coaching job. So that's to be put out there as well. And proof's in the pudding. We'll see how he gets on. What's interesting for me though is that they've got a there can be no excuses for people, and there seems to be a lot more pressure on different positions. So I love the fact that DJ Moore seems to have been called out on his body language. I love the fact that Cole Kmet gets pulled out of a couple of reps because he didn't know the playbook. Imagine what Chase Claypool would have been like under Ben Johnson. He'd have been shot. But like you've got all these different things, and then you've got inside offensive linemen who are like, yeah, and like you man Ozzy I can never pronounce his name, so it's gonna call him Ozzy. Seems to be definitely left tackle material. They're looking at Kieran Amagaje as well there, while Braxton Jones is out. And even when the conversation with Darnell Wright today, yeah, at the moment he's my right tackle, but nothing is in stone. And it's almost saying to Darnell Wright, you've got to earn your place as well. And this is the stuff that I want to hear. This is the stuff that I want to start looking at. And look, there's a danger with that, because if it doesn't go right in the first 4 weeks, you could lose the dressing room really quickly. But what I do like about what he's trying to implement is this level of expectation and level of appreciation of what you need to do. And it goes back to his first time he was in Chicago when he was doing the conversation to all the staff. And it was very much like, your job is to make them in the best position they have to win the game. And when I'm hearing that, because I used to work in a sports club, my first thought was, don't know about that. And then he calls out the players as to go, yeah, you've got all this stuff for you. All this stuff is now done for you. You've got all the staff working for you. You've got all the coaches working for you. You've got all this you want. No excuses. None. No more. Don't want to hear about it. If you don't catch a ball, or you don't block, or you don't run past, or run off the edge, get at the quarterback, you don't do any of those things, that's on you. And I accountability. I love it.
Yeah, and that's it. Like, this is the whole thing, on the thumbnail for this video is year 2 is loading. Do you mean year 1 is done? We look at what happened last year. We look at the trials and tribulations, the messes where coaches being sacked midway through the year, the offensive line not being there, and players maybe not playing to the best of their ability, all that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of that was to do with the leadership. A lot of that was to do with the coaching. And this year, though, things are different. Now, Caleb Williams last year, still just over 3,500 total yards, 20 touchdowns, and that wasn't a bad team. That wasn't a team where you didn't have an offensive line. Fair enough, you had some decent receivers in there. But it wasn't stellar.
He didn't have an offensive coach. He didn't have a head coach. He didn't have now. In saying that,
no one was watching film with him, apparently. Do you know what I mean? He's just basically sitting there figuring it out himself.
His own.
Which is madness.
But this smacks of everything that, and this goes back to that start of the conversation. This smacks of everything that the Chicago Bears have done around the quarterback, and they've killed some quarterbacks. Whether you like them as a player or not, but they have. You can argue on anything, whether you thought such and such is a good player, whether you thought Mitch was a good player, whether you thought Joseph Fields was a good player, whether you thought that. The proof in what we're seeing with Caleb is that the Bears seem to kill quarterbacks. And it's where quarterbacks go to die. That's fair. And therefore, last point on this, I fully get Mr. Williams and Caleb both thinking the same thing. So when they go and listen to Ken O'Connell in the Vikings talking, must be manna from heaven. So next thing we're moving into. What's our take on where we see the Bears now? Is there a move still to come, do you think? Is there a running back that you want? Is there someone that you think they're going to do? Or is it a case of, right, we are where we are now. Let's see where we get, maybe get some depth pieces, get some little bits and pieces here, but not anything big. Like, we're not going to go with Chubb. We're not going to go to Heckinson. We're not whatever man, Hendrickson. We're not going to go with him. We're not going to go with any of those guys. We're going to go with what we have and see where we are in week 1. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think that there's possibly still a big move to come. We're only at the end of May. We remember back in 2018, the week before, or was it not even the week before? It was like the week of week 1, wasn't it? Was week 1 we traded for Khalil Mack before the Packers game, and then that was an epic game, man. Like I love. Sometimes I still go back and watch those highlights because Khalil Mack was just like phenomenal in that game. Like really something else. Um, Anyway, sorry, I'm drifting off here, but the I think there's definitely a potential for a bigger move there. I think the pass rush is definitely something everyone's still talking about. Whether it's Trey Hendrickson or not, I don't know, but I think there could be a move there. I think running back is definitely a position of need. Um, but I just think this Bears team, especially with Ben Johnson at the helm, I think they just feel that they have more conviction in what they're doing. And if they see a move that they really want to make, I think that they might make it. Because I don't think that they think that they're a million miles away. I mean, I know
You
nothing's,
do you?
well, I was going to say, I know nothing's proven at the moment. Do you know what I mean? We haven't seen them play. So it's difficult to say aye or no. But I think there's definitely an argument to say that given the pieces that have been added, especially offensively in the line, and in terms of the receivers, tight ends, wide receivers, I think there's definitely an argument to say that they've improved, certainly on paper, significantly. So maybe they aren't that far away, but I think the first 4 weeks are going to be the first two weeks of the season are going to be key for that. Anyway, you got the two divisional games. You come up against the Vikings week 1, and then you're away to the Lions week 2, and I think if you can come out and convincingly, or if you can come out and convince people, not convincingly win, but if you can come out and convince people that you're something to be reckoned with, and you can get certainly at least one win there, then you never know. But it's an interesting one. It's difficult at the minute. But to answer your original question, I think there is a move there. I don't know what it is. I still think there's a trade coming. I don't know if it's a free agent that's signing, but I think there might. I feel that there's a trade coming somewhere. It just feels. It just has that sort of feeling about it. Do you know that? And I remember the Khalil Mack was pretty a surprise, pretty much of a surprise move at the time. But I think it could be something. It could be something similar. I asked this because I've still got this Trey Hendrickson thing in my mind. Like it could happen. Um,
The
and I think
money,
it
the money,
would
the
move.
money might be an issue there. I get your point. Money might be an issue. We've 10 minutes left, lads, before I off into the sunset. Well, sunset. It's getting dark here now. For me, well, all the time's a quarter to 11. Jesus.
You still
For
get the sun
me,
at quarter to 11. That'd be good. That.
sorry.
You still get the sun at quarter to 11.
No, it's
Yeah.
gone dark now. It's dark overhead. But it was sunny now up to around 40 minutes ago. When I started the show, it was sunny. Maybe it's gone dark when my bears thought. I think my take on where we are right now is I still think I'd say we're the third best team in that division, which is a really good division. I think Detroit are the favourites for me, but I think they've regressed. I think Packers have done nothing that I would worry me. Their head coach, I think, is a very good head coach. I've been on record saying that regularly, but they haven't really done anything that would worry me. Vikings, I think, are one of those dark horses. They're either going to be brilliant or they're going to be shit. But they still have some really, really good players. Going to see what JJ McCarthy's going to be like. It's going to be really interesting. First day up, I see the Bears winning that game. I think we will. I think it's Sunday night football, Monday night football, and I think we'll win it because I think there's a bit of momentum there. I think we'll head into Detroit, and I think that's going to be an absolute hilarious game because their fans hate Ben Johnson, which is hilarious to me as well. But anyway, I digress. I think for me the big one as we're heading towards this is what are we going to look like on the field? What is it we're going to be? What's the Ben Johnson offense going to look like? How's Caleb going to develop under that? What's our running back situation going to be like? There's so many more we look a better football team on both sides of the football. Are we going to be healthy? Which is obviously a big one. We missed, and I keep saying it, we missed Andrew Billings massively in the second half of the season. It's no coincidence Andrew Billings wasn't on the field and we lose 6 or 7 games in a row. I'm really looking forward to seeing him back. Then you've got all the free agencies that they made, which are smart moves on both defensive and offensive lines. And I'm intrigued as to what we're going to be. Do I think we're going to win our division? No, I don't. Do I think we're going to be in the playoffs? Maybe. I can see us maybe sneaking into the playoffs. Can I see 3 teams coming out of the NFC North to get into the playoffs? Yes, I can. I think that's something that probably will happen. But because they'll all eat each other, none of those teams will be home advantage kind of thing, because I can see every single one of those teams beating everybody else. And there's not one team in our division, including the Bears, that I think are like absolute walkovers. And I think that's going to be fun to watch, even though we are what 99 days. I think someone said to me. I read somewhere on Twitter today.
It seems like a million miles away, man. It really does. Like, I think about it, effectively we've got the whole summer to go before we even see them play.
Well, what we got to do is, because once these OTAs are finished, we'll have diddly squat to talk about. So we got to come up with some little fun
Yeah.
topics. So anyone on Twitter that's watching, make sure you come over to us. Girlfriend turned out to me.
It's funny you say that, because I was thinking about that the other day, and I think we did briefly raise it on one of the other shows, but I would like to do something, and you were talking about it there, on the NFC North, and talking about, what have each of these teams sort of done, where are they versus last year, all that kind of stuff. So I think that's definitely something that I'd like to look at, kind of moving forward. So that might be a good one for the sort of off season. We did have a question from Jay McCarran on Twitter, and he'd asked us to talk about the Bears wide receiver room and their roles, where these players fit, and the play style. Does Ben anoint someone or create the role in the aggregate? Yeah. So in terms of the wide receivers, where are you with that then? Like, what's your sort of thoughts on how that situation?
I think you'll find that there won't be a wide receiver one. I think it'll be all over the place. I think you'll have players in every position. I think you'll find a lot of 12 style formation. I think you'll find a lot of use of the tight ends. I think they will have big numbers, but again, it'll be work between the two of them. And then I think you'll find DJ will be outside. He'll be on the slot. He'll be things that we haven't talked about. I can see, like, I've seen Johnson do it at Detroit. I can see DJ Moore being a running back for a couple of plays. Just get the ball in the hands of the people who are going to do something. And then your sprint pace guy, I can see that being anybody from Burden, if that's what works out, to DJ, to Roma Dunze. I can see Roma Dunze in the slot. I can see Roma Dunze out wide. I can see even, I can't believe I've got that kid who was at Washington. He's with us now, weird sounding name that I can't remember his name. The wide receiver, I can see him being implemented on plays as well. And all these different positions. And I think even down to Tyler Scott may have some part to play on pure speed down the middle of the field, and people forgetting about him. I think there's a lot of those things. I think you'll find DeAndre Swift will be out in the backfield. I think you'll find a lot of these things because it's Ben Johnson's offense and he likes to do mad stuff. So yes, exactly. I'm not going to even try and pronounce his full name, Zachariah something. But I think from the question around who is the number, I don't think you're going to find wide receiver one. And that's a good thing. I also don't think any of our wide receivers will therefore get 1,000 yards. I could be wrong, and I hope maybe I am wrong. I think it'll just be spread out amongst everybody. And that's, I think, what Ben Johnson would like. Because if you're a defensive coach, okay, we're playing last year's Bears, DJ Moore. Roma Dunze is a rookie. Kane Allen and DJ Moore. So we're going to stop the ball going to them. So therefore, we're going to absolutely blitz everything because their offensive line is shit. Now, you're going, okay, well, I can't do that now because our offensive line is better, a lot better. Suddenly you got Caleb in year 2, and if I start blitzing all the time, I'm going to leave space for people, and I don't know where DJ is going to be. I don't know where Roma Dunze is going to be. Don't know where Luda Burden's going to be. Don't know if they're going to use Loveland. Don't know how they're going to use Cole Kmet. And suddenly, instinctually, you don't blitz. So the Vikings, who are the biggest blitzing team in the world, I don't think they can in week 1. So I think the Bears are going to win, because I think if they start doing that, they're going to get picked apart.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think you sort of, the only thing you can do is really look at like Ben Johnson in Detroit and try, because that's all you've got to go off of. I mean, I know he said that he's going to implement, whatever it is here based off of the players that he's got here. But just looking at the stats for last season in Detroit, Amon-Ra St. Brown had 1,200 yards receiving, and Jameson Williams had 1,001 yards receiving. So there's two receivers there with 2,200 yards between them, and then your next guy Sam Laporta with 700 yards. Do you know what I mean? So I think the interesting conversation there is, do you see the Roma Dunze become more of a contributor on the team this year? Not saying that he'd be the wide receiver one, but I think there's an argument there to say, like, where he was drafted, type of player he is, what we've seen from him last year, then obviously being in a situation where the ball's hopefully going to get to him more, the scheming's going to, the play call is going to scheme him open, maybe have specific play calls for him based on his ability. I think you could see a huge uptick in his production, but I don't think that means necessarily a downtick in DJ Moore's production. So I think you could probably still see two of them have very, very good, significant contributions in terms of yardage and touchdowns.
Well, my point is that you mentioned those two, Laporta and Williams, and you mentioned Rara, right? And that's three players. We automatically should have on paper 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of that, if that makes sense. So the Lions didn't really have that outside of those three players. Now, don't get me wrong, they had better running backs. I'm not suggesting the Bears are a better team than the Lions before anyone has a meltdown. That's not what I'm suggesting. What I'm suggesting is that there's more mouths to feed, which isn't a bad thing. Because suddenly it's like, imagine you're a defensive coach going into that going, okay, right, we're going to shut down this guy, we're going to shut down that guy, we're going to double team that guy, and we're grand. I trust them. I trust that we're going to be fine on Tyler Scott. And then their offensive line's so bad, so we're going to blitz all day. So we're just going to absolutely smash it down the middle. We're going to go everywhere to try and put pressure on Caleb, get him out of the pocket, and hope that we get on one of those 60-yard sacks. It happened. This isn't going to happen this time. I can't see, unless injuries happen, I can't see him getting sacked more than, 40 times. Like any quarterback would normally get around the 30 to 40 mark. I can't see that happening purely and simply because of what we've done investment-wise. And then you throw on top of that, then you've got your weapons. And now it's like, okay, if you're a defensive team, you do have to sit back a little bit more. You do have to cover the field and try and make it more difficult for him to find a person. It's no coincidence that we're seeing a lot of plays that he has to go through short windows. So he got picked off today by Tremaine Edmonds. Doesn't surprise me, because I'd say what you're doing is you're seeing a lot more players sitting back. So he's got more time to throw the ball, but suddenly there's less space to throw the ball into. You want to have that in OTAs, not anywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you'll find though is, you're going to see the contributions for the top two wide receivers. Luther Burton is obviously a wild card because he's never played before in the NFL, so you don't really know what you're going to get from him. But based on what we've seen, you would hope that he can make a good contribution in his first year. We talked about Zacchaeus as well, a guy that can be very productive and was in Washington. I think the tight ends is interesting though, because you've got the Sam Laporta thing in Detroit. Are you going to have the same sort of thing with Cole Kmet? How is he going to be used? I don't think Colston Loveland is going to have a huge production this year, and I hope I'm wrong. But generally speaking, tight ends in the first year in the league take a while to get going. So I'm not hanging too much on that as a huge expectation that if he ends up with like a season like Cole Kmet had in his first season, like that's okay. I think we have to lean more on Roma Dunze in his second year, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, the guys that we brought in like Zacchaeus, etc. I think there's a lot of I don't think we can emphasize how much or we can concentrate too much on what Loveland's going to do. I think he will contribute, but I think we have to set the expectations with that one. And hopefully, Luther Burton's, does the same. But it'll be interesting to see how it all sort of pans out. But really, at the moment, no one's wearing pads. They're all running about in t-shirts and shorts. It's not real at the minute. Do you know what I mean? They're just having a laugh down the park and staying fit, So until the pads come on in training camp, you get a better idea of what you're looking at. We're not really going to know. and then obviously the game time. So it's hard to predict at the minute because I think we're all thinking it's going to be Detroit offense from last year, but I think there's going to be something different. Yeah,
That's it.
so that's that. But anyway, so
Before we go any further, to everyone that's watching on Twitter, the 222, which is a weird number, but we won't go into that. Make sure you follow the show on Twitter. Make sure you come over to YouTube. Make sure you tell your friends, because the two Tonys were only starting at the very bottom. I shaved my head and my face in appreciation of the show. And I'm not wearing a turtleneck, but I will be next week because that'll be our turtleneck deal. So do follow the show and at the Two Tonys pod, and make sure you get involved with us and try and get us involved. Try and get out to as many people as we can. As I said, we're starting from the bottom. The season is in 99 days. By that stage, I want hundreds of you to be involved in the show and get involved with us. And it's appreciated to everyone who does try and get on. Really, really appreciate everyone who joined in and trying to get involved and trying to keep talking to us and keep communicating with us. And yeah, that's it. Anything else to say before we hit the road?
No, just that I still need to buy a turtleneck. I've not bought a turtleneck yet, so it's something I'm working on. I will get round to because I think it's hugely.
We'll have it for week one. We'll have it for week one.
Two Tonys podcast. Fucking turtlenecks. That's the way forward, man, for them. But listen, guys, thanks very much for tuning in. We'll be back maybe next week. I don't know what we're doing yet. It's the off season. We're all over the place. But hopefully next week.
We'll come up with a mad topic as well. Love it.
Exactly. We'll have some fun. We'll put some games in or something. But anyway, guys, thanks very much. Bear down and have a great week.
Bear down.